What crap. The only thing I asked for is a mic. You don't have to give me, I don't even need a stage. I don't give a damn.
The only thing that would piss Trump off more than charging him with obstruction of justice would be saying that he failed at it.
It's okay. I get so angry. I'm up here seething. I'm seething. I'm working my ass off with this stupid mic.
Have you ever noticed that when Trump has no idea about something, he just says any crazy thing that pops into his head, and then he adds, I don't know?
What happens when Trump hears a squeak and loses his cool? His reaction might just reveal more about his fragile ego than you'd think. Stay tuned as we break down how a tiny microphone mishap turned into a full-blown blame game with Trump pointing fingers faster than a weatherman in a tornado warning. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. Imagine being in the middle of a high-profile interview with Elon Musk, a moment crafted to showcase your brilliance, and suddenly, squeak. That's exactly what happened to Donald Trump. During the interview, a minor technical glitch caused Trump's voice to sound, well, less than commanding.
I'm blowing out my left arm. Now I'm going to blow out my right arm, and I'm blowing out my damn throat, too, because these stupid people.
Just a squeaky microphone, a simple tech error that could have happened to anyone, right? But instead of shrugging it off or laughing it away, Trump turned this tiny hiccup into a full-blown episode. Because when you're Donald Trump, even a squeak feels like an attack. After the interview, Trump didn't just let it slide. No, that's too simple for the man who once called a hurricane tremendously wet. According to him, it wasn't the equipment's fault, but something bigger, something sinister. He floated the idea that it might have been a setup, a word he loves to use whenever things don't go his way. In his world, a squeaky microphone couldn't just be a technical error. It had to be intentional sabotage. And let's not forget his social media meltdown that followed. Trump took to his platform Truth Social, rattling off accusations, suggesting the sound engineers were incompetent, while sprinkling in his usual flair about fake news and disloyal people. A small issue snowballed into a full-blown conspiracy theory, complete with self-victimization and endless finger-pointing. What's most fascinating and frankly hilarious is the sheer amount of time and energy he invested in blaming others. For hours, he ranted, turning what should have been a trivial moment into a spectacle. He even claimed that the glitch was meant to make him look bad and warned his followers to watch out for those trying to silence him.
But I don't ask for much. I don't ask for much. The only thing I ask for is a good mic.
Because apparently, a malfunctioning mic is part of some grand anti-Trump plot. Forget climate change or economic policy. The real threat to Trump's world is a squeaky sound in an interview. Here's where it gets even weirder. Rather than addressing the incident with humor or even a dismissive comment, Trump doubled down. He turned to a favorite tactic, labeling it part of the so-called rigged system. It's classic Trump. If something doesn't go right, it isn't an accident or bad luck. It has to be a deliberate attack. What's more, he didn't just aim his frustration at the sound system. Sources close to his team reported he even lashed out at the people who scheduled the interview, saying they didn't vet the setup properly. Imagine being one of those staffers, having to explain technological hiccups to a man who probably thinks Wi-Fi is short for why try.
Give me a good mic, and I went through 2 of these today, and it knocks the hell out of your throat. But so far I'm doing okay, right? Okay.
But this meltdown wasn't just about the squeak. It was about defending the one thing Trump seems to value above all else, his image of dominance. A squeaky microphone made him sound weak, literally. And if there's one thing Trump can't stand, it's appearing anything less than invincible. His reaction to the incident wasn't just outrage. It was a textbook example of how he handles any moment of perceived imperfection. Instead of admitting fault, he scours the scene for someone or something to blame, then inflates the problem into a major grievance. It's not just about deflecting, it's about preserving the illusion of control, no matter how absurd the situation is. There's a method to this madness. Leadership studies often mention that Trump's refusal to acknowledge flaws reinforces his cult of personality.
What crap. The only thing I asked for is a mic. You don't have to give, I don't even need a stage. I don't give a damn.
His most loyal supporters see these episodes not as evidence of insecurity, but as proof that he refuses to be a victim. But take off the rose-colored glasses for a second, and it becomes clear. His never-back-down approach might protect his ego, but it leaves him looking ridiculous to anyone outside the bubble. The result? A tiny technical blip became front-page news because Trump can't or won't let these moments go. And this wasn't the first time. We've seen him fly off the handle over everything from hand-sized jokes to a balloon falling during a rally. Every time, his reaction transforms minor mishaps into unnecessary media circuses. It's all about maintaining the machismo, even if it turns a squeaky mic into a global talking point. This incident became a case study in ego-driven crisis management. Instead of controlling the narrative or minimizing the awkwardness, Trump lit a fire under it. The overreaction spoke volumes, not just about his inability to admit faults, but about his core strategy of constantly steering attention elsewhere. By turning a squeak into a scheme, he made it clear that no detail is too small to threaten his fragile self-image. But this is just part of Trump's broader playbook. When things fall apart, he doesn't just stop at blaming others. There's a whole next level to this strategy, one designed to keep his supporters distracted while he rewrites the story. And trust me, it only gets wilder from here. What do you do when the stage lights start to flicker, or your mic adds a comically high-pitched squeak to your voice? Most people would laugh it off, maybe crack a joke and move on, but not Donald Trump. No, no, no. When something goes wrong for Trump, it's never his fault, and it's definitely not just bad luck. It's someone else's blunder, part of a larger plot, or the latest evidence of the big bad deep state.
He's cognitively impaired and physically impaired. There's something wrong with them all because I have guys that are stupid back there.
And more importantly, according to him, it's always a problem he conquers in the end. This guy has a playbook he's been running for years. Blame someone, promise something bigger is coming, and declare victory even if it's painfully obvious that nothing went according to plan. Let's take the squeaky microphone incident as Exhibit A. When Trump's voice wavered into chipmunk territory during his chat with Elon Musk, you might think he'd laugh along or at least gloss over the moment, but that's not his style. Instead, hours after it happened, he was still obsessively hammering away at the issue on Truth Social, claiming the squeak was someone else's screw-up. Or worse, deliberate sabotage. He turned a situation that should have been a minor blooper into yet another performance of everyone's out to get me. It wasn't just about deflecting blame, it's part of a bigger strategy designed to keep his narrative intact at all times. Here's how it works. Step 1. Find a scapegoat. Back in 2020, for example, Trump was grilled about lagging public health responses, and instead of acknowledging any mistakes, he shifted gears faster than a kid caught sneaking cookies. He pointed fingers at the media, China, woke bureaucrats. It's basically a spinning wheel of blame. The same formula appeared with the microphone situation. Within hours, Trump was blaming faulty equipment, incompetent staff, and even hinting at suspicious forces tampering with the setup. He didn't just acknowledge the glitch, he used it to cry conspiracy, further selling the idea that he's the heroic figure constantly under attack.
Pretend you're listening to it perfectly, and I'll come back and do another one, okay? With a decent...
Step 2 in the Trump playbook, overpromising. When a problem arises, Trump never just lets it sit as a simple issue. He inflates it with grand ideas and absurd solutions, usually ones that will never see the light of day. Think about how he responded after losing his 2020 re-election bid. Instead of quietly bowing out, he began shouting about a stolen election and promised undeniable evidence that never materialized. With the squeak saga, though it didn't drag into that level of chaos, he still threw in plenty of his classic flair. According to him, this wasn't just a minor glitch. It was proof he's been targeted by enemies, and only he can fight back against a global cabal of sound engineers. By inflating problems and turning himself into the victim-turned-savior, he keeps his audience hooked, always waiting for his next big move.
It's okay. I get so angry, I'm up here seething. I'm seething. I'm working my ass off with this stupid mic.
Now, step 3. Declare victory no matter what. At any point in this spiral, does Trump say, "All right, maybe I overreacted"? Of course not. Whether it's the squeak, election fraud accusations, or a government shutdown, he paints himself as the triumphant warrior who came out on top. In his eyes, the specifics don't even matter. History is just a smudged mirror as long as he can make the end blurry enough to call himself the winner. And amazingly, plenty of his supporters are ready to agree. They're on board the Trump train, choo-chooing all the way through whatever mental gymnastics it takes to turn any hiccup into proof of his success.
Hello? Hello? I don't think so. Hello? Is that better?
If it feels a little like watching a magician drop his cards mid-performance and still convince half the crowd they just saw a rabbit vanish, well, that's because it is. Trump uses distraction as his main sleight of hand. He'll wag his finger at an invisible enemy with one hand, while the other hand, the one actually holding responsibility for the problem, stays hidden in his pocket. Research points out that this isn't as random as it seems. His followers are deeply invested in the story he's selling, that he's the underdog fighting off corrupt elites. As long as this alternate reality holds up, Trump can keep dodging accountability, no matter how transparent his strategy really is. Of course, the problem with running the same play over and over is that eventually people start to notice. Comedian Trevor Noah hit this nail square on the head, roasting Trump over just how predictable this whole shtick has become.
Have you ever noticed that when Trump has no idea about something, he just says any crazy thing that pops into his head, and then he adds, I don't know?
Noah joked recently about how the squeaky mic chaos wasn't just an overreaction. It was a prime example of Trump's inflated ego taking precedence over common sense.
Which is pretty slick, because then you can never call him out on it.
Maybe birds can fly backward when we're not looking. I don't know.
The only thing that would piss Trump off more than charging him with obstruction of justice would be saying that he failed at it.
The punchline? By overreacting to a laughable moment, Trump turned what should have been a forgettable glitch into internet immortality. And naturally, he didn't like that critique one bit. His reaction to Noah, including more Truth Social posts dripping with indignation, only further underscored how thin-skinned he is underneath the bravado. This approach works, for now. It lets Trump maintain control of his narrative and keep his audience loyal. But the million-dollar question is, how long can it last? When every mistake is someone else's fault, every plan is overpromised, and every event ends in a self-declared victory, the pattern eventually becomes impossible to ignore. So as Trump faces bigger challenges, both legally and politically, you've got to wonder, is this playbook enough to keep him afloat? Or will it all squeak to a stop? Trump's obsession with controlling his image is the ultimate irony. It screams insecurity while trying to shout power. The squeaky microphone should have been a harmless blip, but instead, it became a small window into a larger truth. His entire persona depends on appearing invincible, no matter how ridiculous the effort. His responses, from conspiracies to self-declared victories, show a man terrified of weakness, even in a squeak. But here's the real question. When you build everything on an illusion, how long before the cracks start showing? The squeak will fade, sure, but what's next for someone who takes everything so personally?